Hello, everyone, and welcome to Graduate Business Career Services Alumni Career Talks Breaking into Project Management. My name is Michelle Levy, and I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Business Career Services. So, for our graduate business students, Graduate Business Career Services can help you in your career journey from, putting together your resume to applying to jobs and internships to helping you with interviews and much more. For the undergrad students watching this webinar, the Career Development Center is here to assist you in your career journey as well and can help you with resumes, cover letters, interviewings, and much more as well. So I wanted to say thank you to David for joining us today for the webinar to share his experience about project management and how he got into the field. And the setup for this webinar is I have questions prepared for David to answer, but you all can ask questions into the chat box if you have any questions that you wanted to ask about project management or David's work in construction. Anything you want to know, he is here to help you kind of break into the field. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce David and give a big thank you to him for being here today to share his experience with us. So David Puzio is a project manager for Environmental Construction Group within Southern California. David manages day-to-day operations, oversees profit and loss, along with leading projects ranging from $5,000 to $1 million. Additionally, David works with executive management on upcoming requests for proposal and invitation to bid on public and private projects. Prior to working as a project manager, David worked for the Republic Services, a national recycling and waste company, and was ranked within the top 10% of sales in the company. David holds a BA and MBA from California State University, Long Beach. In his downtime, David enjoys spending time with his family and friends through Zoom, exercising, and going to the dog park with his pit bull. So thank you again, David, for being here and sharing your experience. Um, so again, I'm going to ask David any questions. We have some prepared, but this is a time for you all to ask any questions. So you can chat them into the chat box and I'll answer them. So David, I know the students heard a little bit about your bio and your experience, but maybe if you want to tell a little bit more about yourself and how you got into the field of project management or how you knew project management was the field that you wanted to go into.
Sure. So prior to getting into project management, as you guys know, I worked as a business development representative for Republic Services, which is a national and recycling waste company. However, this was also the time when I was in your shoes working on the MBA program. So I definitely know those long nights and early days in juggling both. I was at Republic Services for about 3.5 years, and this really gave me experience that I felt really allowed me to understand project management, and I'll tie that in later. So Republic Services has a business development side and an operations side. The company really doesn't, they're siloed in departments, so they're not really designated, there's not really a designated person that merges both or really has a strong grasp of both lines of business. They really kind of just stay one away from each other. Of course, you are in the MBA program, so you start analyzing your company. You start thinking ways that it could be more effective. You start taking your textbook and really trying to apply what you're going on a day to day. And some things within companies like to stay within the status quo. The way I got into project management is when I was at Republic Services, I worked with my current company, Environmental Construction Group, as a vendor, and I developed a really good relationship with management over those years. One day I was speaking with the president of Environmental Construction Group on LinkedIn, and we just started talking about work and just we're having a good conversation. And I was actually talking to him currently what I was doing, and we just started talking about things that could be better, and he was giving me his experiences on service. So that really allowed me to kind of open the door, and he really mentioned to me that he was looking to fill some positions. I did graduate. I was graduating the MBA program. So once you're done with school, you start looking at opportunities, and you really just want to kind of find out what else you can be, what else is out there. So project management was something that they were looking for that position. I really didn't know too much about it, so I started, trying to bridge that gap, connecting with people who are in that role with the other industries, and then interviewed, and then everything worked out well, and then that's where I just kind of started my career in that direction.
Nice. So it sounds like networking really played a role in, finding this position and kind of breaking into project management.
Of course, definitely networking is important, and of course, I know in the MBA program that's something that we do preach on. There's events, so I definitely would, um, encourage you guys to utilize that.
And this isn't one of the prepared questions, but how, in your mind, would you describe project management? Like, what is the definition of project management to you?
So, project management to me, I feel, is that you are essentially a business owner. And the reason I say that is, entrepreneur, because you actually do have a project in place that you have to take care of. So that project might be, you might take on a project, for example, like me in construction, but you might have a project that might, you have to implement another idea, or you might have to make a change within your company. So you have a budget in place, you have a schedule, and you have to execute that plan. So whatever projects you do have, you have to really make sure that you understand that and you really are successful on your end.
Yeah, that's a great definition of thinking about it. Just like it's like you're running your own business, kind of seeing a project from point A to Z overall.
Exactly.
So what does a typical day look like for you in your position, and what aspects of it do you enjoy the most, and what do you find most challenging?
Right. So typically my days start quite early within the construction industry. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. I have been known to be the first person at Starbucks, waiting for that door to open at 4:35 in the morning and getting that coffee. At my company, we have two meetings. One is business development, which we discuss upcoming opportunities, job walks, bids, and then we also have operations that gives updates on projects that are starting, that are ending, and then also within the process, we actually look at a 3 to 4 week forecast that gives us a gauge overall as a company, and it gives us also time to, if there's necessary documents that we need to provide for the jobs, any kind of notifications that we need to provide within the city or counties. So the meetings only last about an hour, which are great because it gives you more time to focus on your tasks. And that's something that as a project manager, you do have tasks that you have to make sure that you fulfill. There are times where I start in the office catching up on emails, looking at P&Ls, setting up pre-construction meetings for upcoming projects, creating budgets, getting proposals for scopes on work that we're not actually doing in-house. So we actually do sub out some of our work as well too. Creating schedules and making sure that you execute those effectively. Other days, I begin at the job site where I meet with crews and get updates on the project or meetings uh, with general contractors, provide progress on our work, and then also work with formal billing as well too, because that's something where if you do have a timeline of a project, you can't essentially build a whole project at once. You have to really piecemeal that. So that's something you have to take into consideration. You also, it's important that you are active in your jobs. There's a term called scope creep, which is a common term in project management. Within the construction industry, we see this as unforeseen conditions. So these are things that do occur within a project that you just can't um, imagine that it actually occurred. So you have to really work backwards and make decisions rather quickly and make sure that you're still on track and meeting schedule. Sometimes I have job walks with potential projects, and I work closely with the estimating department on these projects. We use a term called the rough estimates, called ROMs in construction. And within these job walks, you look at the schedule. Sometimes there's already a budget in place within the owner or general contractor, and you have to work to see if that's actually going to be achievable. There are times where you might be on the road, answering calls, emails in between job walks. So to sum it up, every day can be different, but you have to really establish and plan for short-term and long-term objectives.
And I think you make a good point that every day is different. There's not, it's just the tasks that kind of come up with the project. And would you say, like, a lot of the things you talked about, like, I know you're in the construction industry, but would you say this pretty similar for other industries as well? Or do you think it really kind of varies from industry to industry?
No, I definitely think that it does. There is kind of a uniform within project management that you can definitely take those skill sets and you can definitely utilize those in other industries as well too. I think construction is a little bit different. And I know there's also construction management. But however, kind of the systems in place for project management, you definitely could utilize those in other industries and sectors as well.
Okay, so some of those things you talked about are things that they would see in other industries as well.
Yeah, you could definitely see that. Yeah, especially for example, if you work in tech, there might be a proposal where you actually are working on a public bid. You definitely there's ideas of project management incorporated in that as well too.
Nice, nice. Um, so, you spoke a lot about, what does your day to day look like and, working with clients and budgets and staying on track. And what are some of the skills or experiences that you feel are essential for students to know or to develop if they want to go into project management?
So I definitely believe effective communication, emotional intelligence, team building, negotiating, risk management, critical thinking, and of course, the leadership skills are important as a project manager. However, I also want to stress that if you don't have those skills or you're not strong at them, doesn't mean that you can't be a project manager. Personally, I feel fortunate enough to work with seasoned management that I have been able to acquire these skills through experiences that I've been put into. For example, you might be on an email chain with 20 other individuals. For example, in construction, I work with engineers, architects, government agencies, and developers within a project. And however, each one of these individuals has a different background. So it's really important that you speak to your audience. Really, you want to implement collaboration methods are very important to make sure the project's successful. Things can change throughout the day, so it's important that you work by notifying everybody, communicating with your client as well as your team, and also have an explanation on what strategy you want to communicate with them as well. So you might run into a week delay on your project, but you have to be comfortable explaining it, but also have something in place to offset that delay.
Mhm.
Also, there might be times of unforeseen costs on your project. You need to be able to explain that to management as well too.
Yeah, so definitely those effective communication skills are really important, right? Because you're dealing with a lot of different people overall, too.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
like,
And that's why
oh no, what were you gonna say?
yeah, I was gonna say that one thing within project management is that you always want to make sure that you understand what your budget is and also the daily burn rate. So that's something you guys probably have learned about. You really want to understand where you actually are over budget, you're under budget, and what you need to really do to get back on track.
Definitely. And I like how you mentioned emotional intelligence. Could you like talk a little bit more about that and like how like what does that mean? Like when you say that, what does that mean to you or how can students showcase that they have emotional intelligence?
So I think emotional intelligence is one of those soft skills. I think you could definitely learn that through working, experience, really being put in those situations, because that's going to be something that you're going to be able to overcome. You're going to be able to learn. And I don't really feel that emotional intelligence is, kind of in a textbook. I think it's something that you have to really experience on your end.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one thing, like you said, to learn about it, but another to kind of showcase it in the field, and it's important as you're working with so many different people.
And
Uh,
exactly, as part of teams, you definitely that's something you will showcase.
mhm. And so, students, if you have any questions, feel free to chat them into the chat box as I'm continuing to ask David questions. And, we've talked a little bit about, what does your day look like? Like, what is that, day to day, a little bit about the skills. The next step is kind of thinking about like an interview. So, if students apply to a project management role, how do you feel like a student can stand out in an interview? What have you seen that looks great? And then maybe what are some like pitfalls you've seen, or just what's your overall experience with students interviewing for project management roles?
So first and foremost is that you want to come prepared to an interview. Definitely do some practice runs, answering questions, and then do the research on the company. Most interviews are phone screening. Then it's usually one to two individuals, and then there's usually a final interview with upper management or conducted on a panel. You often hear that saying that the company will know within the first few minutes if they will hire you, and that really tells the pulse to see if you align with the culture of the company. And that's something that's really important. And you also want to make sure that you play on your strengths when answering these questions. Because companies do look at employees as investments. So the best way to find out is during the interview. If a company is willing to invest, 90 days, 1 year, 3 years, and so forth. Companies, of course, are transitioning to more virtual interviews through Zoom and other online platforms. So you have to make sure that you're comfortable with the technology. Something that I do personally is I come in prepared with questions. I usually write down like 3 to 5 questions, and I usually ask those at the interview, at the end of the interview. Sometimes when you're in an interview, your mind could be all over the place. You might be at the moment where you're walking out and I should ask this, or I should explain it like this. So it allows you to really take a step back and really to get control within the interview as well on your end. One other point I want to mention is that everybody learns differently. Some people are stronger at listeners. Some people see more when they learn, or it's questions are being asked. Rather than answering a question right away, make sure that you understand the question first, as reinterpreting it in your own words, and see if that's actually what's being asked of you.
Yeah, that's really great advice, because I know I've been on interviews where I ask a question and they don't, their answer is completely different than what the question that I asked. So that's definitely really great advice. And a student was wondering, kind of combining our last kind of topic of emotional intelligence and interviewing, and how can they convey that they have emotional intelligence skills in an interview, especially now since like interviews are virtual and it's a little bit harder, to kind of create that connection and to showcase that. Do you have any advice for that, of how they can showcase emotional intelligence skills in interviews?
I think it's giving examples and definitely really trying to connect. And that's kind of what you are doing within the interview itself, is you're really trying to connect with that other person on the other side. So I think really giving examples of how you can really, you know, showcase that emotional intelligence. Things that I've actually done where when it came to budgets, for example, I really didn't have too much experience at first. So I really played on what I learned in the classroom. Really kind of use those opportunities to really show how I was able to balance budgets, how I was able to forecast and provide kind of that experience.
Yes, definitely. I feel like if there's one thing I tell students in interviews is you have to showcase those examples. And I think you bring up a good point of, if you don't have any hands-on experience, talk about your classroom experience and give those examples there, because you are learning a lot and have a lot of experience in the classroom. Um, so what do you see as the future for project management, and how do you feel like project management is changing?
So I definitely see a lot of opportunity in project management in the future, with trends and especially with industries and companies looking to fill that knowledge-based role. I feel that the skills of project management, as I mentioned earlier, are transferable within industries, especially ones that collaborate or complement each other. For example, working at Republic Services, I had that connection with environmental construction groups, so I really did have an understanding with their business. So that really allowed me to speak on that strength. Working in project management, you definitely develop breadth of skills. You can make changes in your career or even start your career. Uh, One way that I would speak on the industries, changing both public and private, is that they're actually implementing these roles. You start seeing a lot of companies taking on or showing actually project management as a role that they're looking to fill. Uh, Project Management Institute, which oversees the PMP designation. I'm familiar with that. You guys are probably as well too. But it states that there's a 33% growth over the within 7 sectors, or nearly 22 million jobs by 2027. So the future is bright for project management.
That's great. That's great. A great stat to hear. And I kind of, as you were talking, I was thinking like, if students are looking for roles in project management, is that what your position is called? Like, is your like title like project manager, or do you have a different title, or have you seen like unique titles at different organizations for this type of role?
My title is just a project manager. I have seen other titles too, as well. Of course, there is assistant project managers. Construction's just a little bit different, maybe from other industries. However, one thing that I do want to point out is people who actually do want to get into project management is really get a good grasp of that industry that you're trying to get into. You can definitely start at different roles, but you essentially at the end as a project manager, you really want to make sure that you understand that industry and also areas of how you can make it stronger.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Okay. So if they're looking for a project management role, kind of doing that keyword search, because you know how different companies they have different titles for everything. So
Yeah.
it's good to know that they could just put in project manager and find that. But you do bring up a good point of like becoming an expert in the industry that you're interested in. So did you know that you were interested in construction before you got into it, or is that just something? It sounds like it's something you more kind of fell into.
It is definitely something I kind of fell into. However, I do try to be whenever I started, I try to be like a sponge and hopefully just try to learn as much information as I can. And one of the things though is once I got into construction, I kind of felt that I was overcoming two learning curves. One within the role of project management, then also one with the construction industry as well too.
Okay, well, but that's good. That's good to know that, you didn't have this background in construction. It's like you got into it, you learned, and eventually became that expert in the field.
Hmm.
Um, so we talked a little bit about like the future of project management. There's, a bright future for it, but how has COVID-19 impacted your industry? How have you seen have you seen any impact, or has it not really impacted the industry at all?
COVID? I don't know
Co-
if
it's been a year now, so
it
on the
has.
anniversary of the calling it a pandemic, we are here
Yeah.
virtually. So
So, COVID definitely 19 has definitely impacted the construction industry in a number of ways. Luckily, it's considered one of the essential services. So we have seen growth avenues in certain lines of business, but we've also seen delays. For instance, we've had project start dates that have been moved, schedules that have been shifted as a result of contact tracing, positive cases. We've also had to implement new means and methods with safety protocol. Communication between the office and field might take a little bit longer than it has in the past. Also, different working hours. I have colleagues that work in different trades, and they've mentioned trouble getting questions answered, which has caused delays and forced them to really pivot and find alternatives on creating solutions if they're possible. Personally, I've seen a lot of projects on the public side, such as municipalities and um, schools. Um, Many of the employees and students are working and learning remotely. So my company actually has done a few projects at Long Beach State. One is at the College of Business. We actually did have some scope that was with removing all the chairs and everything else, and also doing a lot of the interior demolition. And then we're also at the Horn Center as well too. So actually doing some job walks definitely brought back some memories when I was actually doing those. But once the students go back, hopefully I think that you guys definitely will see kind of changes because right now there actually is a lot of construction going on if you guys haven't been out there.
yeah, they're probably taking advantage of people not on campus, right? To
Exactly.
um.
And
So, oh
to
yeah.
add another point though, also within the supply chain, construction definitely has had its bottlenecks. Um, one thing that we've actually utilized is the N95 mask. And within personal protective equipment, that's really important as part of our safety. So once the shutdown happened, there was opportunities where we actually really had to start looking, other vendors and really making sure that we actually had this in place because otherwise we couldn't even perform our work.
Definitely. So you've really had to, sounds like it has impacted a lot in terms of, kind of project deadlines and materials, but also kind of provided opportunities as well for your industry.
Exactly. But one thing also that I did have noticed is a lot of companies do have budgets in place when they actually are looking at construction projects. However, there, as I mentioned, with bottlenecks in the supply, there have been unforeseen costs. So there have been times where you actually have to go back and there have been changes to the budgets. So definitely there's been a shift in that as well too.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if students are interested in construction or not, like COVID has probably impacted in that way of like just needing to think about all the safety protocols and whatnot.
Exactly.
And we have a question from a student that says, do project managers require many years of experience? Should we try to get experience as an assistant project manager or project coordinator beforehand, even with an MBA?
So definitely, I feel that of course, you look at job descriptions where they sometimes ask for like 3 to 5 years of experience. I definitely feel that you should look at opportunities of getting your foot in the door and really kind of learning from the ground up. Everybody's different, but I think that if you really have a good, solid foundation, you're going to be able to learn those skill sets of a project manager that I mentioned that are transferable. So you can definitely be a project manager in one industry, and then if you want to transition into another industry, I think that you can really speak on those.
Awesome. Great advice. And another question that we have is, what project management software are you using at work? Which software do you think would be good for the students to know about?
Within construction, we use something called Primavera 6, P6. This is actually something I'm actually learning on my own. I'm taking some classes as well too, and I always definitely believe that you should always further your education as well. But each program and each industry utilizes different program softwares, project management softwares. So it definitely, I would say it's a case by case basis. But with so much information out there with YouTube, especially like Coursera, you can definitely really take that to your advantage.
And how would you know like what other industry softwares are using? Is that something that they often like will put on their website, or would you have to like network with someone in the company to learn more about the softwares that are used in that industry?
Definitely, I think one way would be networking with those individuals in that industry and finding out what softwares they're utilizing or what they're looking to transition into. Sometimes they might be, a year out, but that's something that's down the pipeline. So you really want to kind of maybe get ahead of the game with that.
Nice. Um, so another great question we have is, how critical is a PMP or CAPM certification in project management?
Definitely, I see advantages of that designation. I know that there are certain requirements with that as well too. I believe that it might be a few years of working experience. However, I always feel that actual work experience itself does provide a lot of strength and foundation. So you can definitely go for the PMP, but it's also different. It might be something that where you have more of a specialized industry where you really need to have that experience. For example, in construction, I feel that experience really does play a lot in comparison to PMP designation.
And do you know how students would like find out more information about the PMP and like what the requirements are? And
I believe the PMP could be, I believe there's a Project Management Institute, I think oversees that designation. And I know that, they definitely have some information on their website as well too. Of course, reaching out to people who have actually taken on the, testing for the PMP and passed the certification, finding out kind of their experiences. But there are also ones that you can really speak with to find out if it actually has, benefited their career and what they feel that they've learned from it.
yeah, I think that's really great advice, like talking to someone who's done it to see like, okay, did this make an impact, or is it something that, the experience is more important overall. So
Mhm.
Um, we have a lot of other great questions that the students are asking. So, since you were new to project management, did you seek out mentors or did you teach yourself everything along the way?
Definitely, I did seek out mentors. I continue to seek out mentors as well too. Uh, I think that's really important. Really having a solid foundation, and it's really important to make sure that it's going to be something that you're going to be able to work with somebody as well too within a mentorship. It's not going to be something that's going to be done overnight, but that there's really that synergy and that connection that you do have with somebody. They can definitely really help you out. Personally, I actually have somebody that has been mentoring me. They've been in the industry for about 30 years. He's really kind of helped me out, especially being a few years in project management, and has really kind of given me examples of things that he's come across over the years, and it really allowed me to get a good kind of help me out in my learning curve.
And how did you find him to serve as a mentor? And how did you reach out to him? Was it just something that you saw their profile and reached out, or did you have a connection connect you? I think we're always telling students like seek out mentors, but it's kind of like the how do they actually do that? That can be a little confusing.
No, definitely. I think one way you can really seek out mentors is definitely be outgoing in a way where you actually, it might not be within your industry, but it might be something that, somebody who's got a wealth of experience. Professors are great mentors. Definitely reaching out to them, finding out people, they don't have to really have, all that wealth of experience, but somebody you can actually communicate with. Um, I actually have been doing Toastmasters for about 7 years, and this is actually a organization that works on public speaking. And there's actually been a mentor that I connected with there, and it was just more of just talking to them, giving your experience, where you want to go with your career. And that's the thing, though, is mentors really want to help you. They want to make sure that you're successful.
Hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like you found your mentor more organically through the organizations you're involved with, but
Mhm.
you could also reach out to people to have conversations, informational interviews, and if you strike a good relationship, then it can eventually move on to like a mentorship type of
Exactly,
opportunity.
of course. Yes.
So we have a question: was your undergrad degree in business, and if not, how did you transition to project management?
Okay. So my undergrad degree actually was in history and philosophy. So I didn't really have any experience with business. Once I finished my undergrad, I went into the workforce, and I felt that I was lacking that business fundamentals and that what I needed, to really kind of understand all the ideas and each line of business. For example, like finance, accounting. That's when I really felt that I needed to go back and pursue my MBA. Now, transitioning that into project management is I felt that this, what I learned in the MBA program, along with my work experience, allowed me to essentially put myself in that position as a project manager. And project managers, of course, there's companies like Amazon, Tesla that do have project manager roles, but then there's also mid-sized and smaller companies as well too that are looking to fill that role. So that's where you can really kind of find out, really making sure that you don't really not look at the smaller the companies as well too, because you
Yeah,
can grow to a project manager for one of those companies one day as well.
yes, definitely. I think it's always good to look at those small to medium sized companies because they often have a lot of great opportunities and a lot of great experiences for the students to engage in. So do you have any personal tips on networking in the business world in order to gain an opportunity in project management?
Of course, utilizing LinkedIn, I think that's something definitely important. I can imagine everybody probably already has one. Really reaching out to trade associations really are important as well too. Definitely, really. But at the same time, is once you join a trade association, really take on a leadership role as well too. And for example, like Toastmasters, there's president, vice president, sergeant at arms. There's other trade associations where they do have those within meetings as well. So this really is important because it really gives you an understanding of that industry, especially because they kind of are kind of on the forefront of what direction that industry is going to be going as well too. So I think that's really important, and also it allows you to collaborate with other industries as well. That's a good way to be networking. Definitely, within the ND program as well too. Really kind of reaching out to people who are in industries that you really want to get into and find out how they got into that industry.
And is Toastmasters still meeting in the virtual space like during the pandemic?
It's been probably on and off, and I haven't been going the last year. But I believe that there are clubs. It is international, so there are clubs I can imagine that are virtual. It's great because they have the ones that are really tailored to kind of what you really want to work. Some that are working with, within the real estate industry possibly. Then there's some that just meet, once a month. So it really kind of finds out to what's the best for you.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think kind of talking about like professional development opportunities in professional associations, are there any other project management, like professional association or professional development opportunities that you would encourage students to check out or get involved with?
I believe that there is the project or the PMI. I think they might have the association. These ones are usually broken down into like regional areas, maybe Southern California, Northern California, and then within counties. That's definitely one. Or even another one was you can also create your own as well too, a networking opportunity. Maybe you can find people that you kind of connect with. I know like Meetup has been something that you can definitely utilize, especially maybe online as well too. They really find ways that they can connect you based on you know professional but even personal as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think with professional associations, as students, you can get reduced membership, so it's a good to take advantage of it as a student. And meetups also, I saw they are happening virtually, so it's
Okay.
just another way to kind of connect. Because I think during the pandemic, people think like, oh, I can't go to events, but there are other ways of like connecting and networking during this time. It's just a matter of hopping on that Zoom screen and, being more connected to the computer, which I'm sure everyone's ready for a break from the computer right now. Um, so what is one thing you wish someone would have told you before going into project management?
So one thing I would say is you cannot dwell on things that have happened in the past. You need to continue to look forward, especially in your projects. You guys have probably heard the idea of sunk costs. So these are costs that have been put into projects, and there's no way you can recoup that cost. But what you need to do is you need to learn from those experiences and make sure that you take away something within your position or even your career. Um, one example is the time invested within a project itself. You need to really understand how important and precious time is, and really learn how to maximize your output for yourself and even your field staff. One thing is don't be too hard on yourself when things don't go as planned. Some things are out of your control. Like when in the construction, we have weather delays that can really affect our job. Just try to stay flexible and learn from your mistakes. And then this is also something I pointed out was making sure that you have a mentor within the industry or even someone who's a PM as well, project manager.
Definitely. So is there any advice that you would have for someone that wants to break in? So what's your one piece of advice for students that, this is what you should be doing if you want to go into project management, or this is what you should know?
So I really feel that try to learn as much as you can about the industry that you're trying to pursue. Look for opportunities how it can run smoother or add value to your company. Kind of tying back, I kind of gave the example when I worked at Republic Services, there was kind of the business development side and operations side. And in my opinion, I felt that there really wasn't a designated person that kind of oversaw both departments. So it's kind of creating kind of more of a solution. Of course, networking within the MBA program, finding out ways, people who are project managers find out their day to day. Of course, me being in the construction industry might be completely different for somebody who is in technology or in media. So it's really finding out what industry you really want to get into, and then really kind of growing on that as well. And don't feel bad, getting the bottom, the job project coordinator, starting off with that, because I think you're really going to build a platform, and you're really going to be able to speak on those skill sets that you're learning, and you're going to really be able to move to that next level.
And you mentioned like getting to know the industry that you want to go into. How would you recommend that students do that? Or maybe if they don't know what industry they want to go into, but they know they want to be a project manager, like what advice would you have for that?
I would definitely, utilize opportunities, of course, like YouTube. There's a wealth of information about project management, but then really finding out what you really want to do. Of course, there could be changes within your career. You definitely want to find opportunities that are available. Personally, I feel that with COVID, there is going to be opportunities that are going to be opening up, and it's really trying to maximize and really just trying to be ahead of the game for that as well.
Yes, definitely. I think, like you mentioned, YouTube's really great. I think that's a resource that we don't always talk about, but just the wealth of information that's available on there too.
Mhm.
So, well, that's all the questions I have for you. Students, if there are any other questions you have about, project management, construction, David's past experience, feel free to chat them into the chat box and we can discuss them. And also, students, just wanted to take a quick poll of in the future, what industries and job functions do you want to know more about as we're planning more alumni career talks and having alumni come and share their experience. But do want to give the opportunity if there are any more questions to chat them into the chat box. And did want to give a big thank you to David for sharing your experience and your from going from your bachelor's in history to getting your MBA to working in project management. What's next for you? What do you see as your next step in your career?
Definitely, I am going to be continuing to pursue the role within the construction industry. Definitely, I kind of want to get into a project executive role. As I mentioned, I am taking some online classes, really trying to learn the industry, and so really kind of trying to take a step back, really learn kind of the ground level, and then overall, kind of who knows where my career can lead into. But definitely, there are opportunities, especially with construction. There is a shortage, and it's definitely a great opportunity for those who I never thought about the industry. I definitely would encourage you guys to seek out, learn more about it. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. I can definitely help you guys out, whatever direction you guys are looking into. Or if you guys want me to connect somebody with you that I have a connection with LinkedIn, I don't mind doing that as well either.
Awesome. Thank you for being available. And students, you can find them on LinkedIn. And I think again, you bring up a good point of like even if you're in the role you want to be, your career journey is never over, right? And you
Yeah.
should continue to be networking, seeking out that mentorship. So I think you're a good example of just being that lifelong learner and thinking of that next step, even though you're in the role, the role that you really enjoy overall. So again, students, thank you for being here and thank you to David. And I put into the chat box if you could, there's a link to fill out an evaluation about the event, as well as if you have any thoughts on any ideas, any industries or job functions that you would be interested in learning more about and having us as we bring our alumni career talks for this fall semester as we start planning for the fall, because we're almost done with the spring now. So we'll stay on the line. If anyone has any further questions, feel free. But we're getting a lot of that people enjoyed the talk and they thank you for the information, David.